next year, Michigan will, for the first time in recorded Michigan history, fall below the national average for personal income. We'll be 26th next year in personal income in the United States. We've always been above the national average in Michigan since they started building automobiles. So that's a bad trend that we've been going the wrong direction now for 4 consecutive years. Personal income in Michigan will fall 1.4%. It fell 1.4% last year, and it's on pace to fall 1.4% again this year. So personal income in Michigan is on its way down. Housing values, as we all know here, have been on their way down for 2 years now. We've had to renegotiate with the UAW, and wages have been cut. People have been taking cuts all the way around. But not everybody's taking a cut. In some areas, things are going well. For example, the state legislature will spend this year 8.3% more in the general fund than they spent last year. The line item in the legislature for the legislature itself will go up 7%. State employees last year received 2 pay increases. They would argue those are cost of living pay increases, and they largely were. But the cost of living for everybody else, the income has been on its way down. So in Michigan, we're starting to see 2 types of people. Those that work in the government sector seeing pay increases. Those who work in the private sector seeing pay decreases. How is it that Lansing can increase the general fund 8.3% and increase the legislative line item budget by 7% and spend this year $43.3 billion, the largest budget in history of the state of Michigan? Never has that much been spent by the state in history. Well, the only way they can do it is to raise the state income tax 12% and to raise Michigan's business tax 22%. So that's what they did. They increased the state income tax by 12%, the business tax by 22%. The surcharge on the business tax is what they call it. One of the things that my friends always ask me, knowing that I've been kind of a political hack for so many years, I've been in Lansing, I was a staffer before that, is why? Why do people in Lansing think that raising the income tax and raising the business tax will help Michigan compete again? Why do they think it'll help put Michigan back on its feet again? And the answer to that question is lawmakers are just like anybody else. They're pretty logical in most respects, and they do things that solve their problems. And a lawmaker's problems are not necessarily policy, but their lawmaker's problem is how to get reelected. And every day when I stand on the House floor and I push either the red button or the green button, above me, up above, in the balcony, were the same people. There's a group of people that sit up in the balcony, and they're always there. And those people in the balcony watched every button I pushed. They knew every vote I cast. They knew what my favorite drink was. They knew what my favorite food was. They knew whether I was a Wolverine fan or a Spartan fan. I see the mugs up here. They knew if I preferred hockey or basketball. And they were paid very well to know those things. And those are the people that write you checks for $5,000 or $10,000 when you're trying to get reelected. And the people who sit in the balcony are largely people whose incomes are dependent upon tax dollars. They represent different interest groups whose income is derived upon every vote that's being cast. And where is the everyday person, the everyday taxpayer? They're not really in the balcony because they've got families, they've got friends, they've got sick kids, they've got parents that have to be taken care of, they've got to kick their people to soccer practice, they've got businesses, they've got jobs. So the everyday taxpayer is not there. So when Lansing faced a decision on what the budget that Granholm proposed was actually over $43.3 billion. But when they faced the budget, what are we going to do to fund that budget, knowing that incomes are going down and people are having less money in Michigan? They had to make a choice. Should we cheese off people from the balcony who write those checks for us and cut spending? Or should we cheese off the everyday taxpayer in Michigan? And they made their choice. Anticipating that citizens won't be able to do anything about it. What are they going to do? They're disorganized. They'll forget about it. The big presidential election will come up and everyone will forget. It'll be Hillary and Obama and McCain. It'll be everything else. And that's what they gambled on. Now, lawmakers have gambled and won for a long time when it comes to raising fees and taxes, but not always. Back in 1983, campaigns against 15 different lawmakers. 2 of them were recalled from office. State Senator David Sorokin from Macomb County and State Senator Phil Maston from Oakland County were recalled. After those 2 recalls took effect, the legislature went back into session, undid the tax increase, and enacted spending cuts. So it proves that, politics are not like football. You can go 2-15 if you're the Taxpayers and still have a winning season, unlike the Lions. They were able to undo the tax increase. And since the time of the recalls of Sorokin and Maston, no legislature has not had the audacity to raise general taxes again on the citizens. They did shifts, like Proposal A shifted from property taxes to sales tax. They did hidden type taxes, make you pay your property taxes earlier. They picked on unpopular groups, make smokers pay more. They did hidden tax increases like fees on your birth certificate and death certificate, things that you don't see every day. They did things like, let's make people who buy license plates for trailers buy a 10-year plate. So you have to pay for 10 years of a license plate when you get it, even though the average person keeps a trailer about 6 years in Michigan. So that's a way of getting 4 free years out of each person who wants to buy one plate. So they went to all those hidden fees because of the ghosts of Sorokin and Maston. They're still wailing about in the Capitol in a figurative way. But they ran out of gimmicks. And when the economy started to take a downturn, they needed to increase spending. They needed that spending to go up every year. So they did all the fee increases they could. Then they raided, of course, the rainy day fund was gone in 2 years. Starting in 2001, they started raiding the rainy day fund. The bill to that $1 billion was gone. They did the cigarette tax increase twice, they did the fee increases. Then they started doing some creative things that no one ever thought they'd do, like selling future tax revenues for 40 cents on the dollar today. So they went to the market and sold future tobacco revenues that were coming into the state to an investor who pay us upfront money today so we can keep spending. They ran out of that gimmick. Now if they continue to do that, they would really erode the bond rate in the state of Michigan. So they ran out of things to do, and they went and raised the taxes. If you drive on I-80, the highway, out of Michigan into Indiana, you'll see a big billboard by the side of the road after you cross in Indiana. It says, tired of Michigan's high taxes? Welcome in. I-N, being the abbreviation Indiana, bold and Indiana red. And Indiana has added manufacturing jobs over the last 4 years. And we all know what's going on with Michigan's manufacturing jobs. So Michigan is at a crossroads. After I turned down the legislature, I decided to form an organization that would assist taxpayers, that would represent everyday taxpayers, and try to find a way to keep the lawmakers from raising taxes. Now, one of the things I noticed when I was in the legislature is there are actually some pretty good policy ideas on how we can cut spending. And groups come up there and make these presentations. For example, it costs about $100,000 to put a state trooper on the road in salary and benefits. It costs about $65,000 to put a county sheriff deputy on the road in most rural areas, more so in Wayne, Macomb, and Oakland. If we were to pay rural counties to patrol the state highways with their patrol officers, the county officers, and pay them the money to hire additional county road patrol officers, they could still write speeding tickets. We'd all still get speeding tickets like Rose just got. We would just get them from a county sheriff deputy instead of a state police officer. We would save $35,000 a year for each one of them. But when you hear a presentation like that, and you walk out of the room, and I would turn to my former colleagues and say, what do you guys think of that? Should we do something like that? They would say to me, it's a brilliant idea. So, well, would you co-sponsor legislation to get that reform done? Yeah, I would, but the state police union gave me $5,000 in the last election cycle. Or if there's an idea on how to save money with education, sometimes bidding things out. Once again, it is, yeah, I would, but the MEA gave me X number of dollars last election cycle. There's always a yeah when the National Rifle Association was trying to get concealed carry reforms done, make it easier to conceal carry a pistol. They elected a state rep named Jim Ryan on concealed weapon carry and so forth, got to Lansing and voted the opposite way. The NRA did not get mad. They got even and replaced Jim Ryan with Bob Brown. Since that time, they haven't. They passed the concealed weapons reform and so forth. Other grassroots groups, the MEA, the Michigan Education Association, gets things done the same way. It is not, unfortunately, good public policy that runs Lansing. It is fear that runs Lansing.